Galiba orası. Okay. Murat
Okay.
hocam.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us at 4th Istanbul Bosphorus International Conference on Cybersecurity and Cyberpolitics. Today, we are together at the session 3B, and our session subject or title is High Politics and Low Politics in Cyberspace. We have 4 presenters at our session. So each presenter will have 20 minutes to present their titles, subjects, and then when we finish all the presentation, we will have the discussion session. We will take question and answers at that moment. Okay, thank you very much for coming to this session. So I just would like to give the floor to Dr. Begüm Burak. Dr. Begüm Burak is from French Institute of Anatolian Studies. She will be talking about cybersecurity and legal challenges. You have 20 minutes, Dr. Burak. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank to the head of the organizing team, Nezir Hoca, for this conference, and I also want to thank all the speakers. I want to share my screen if possible. So I try to do this. But I think the host should let me do it. Share screen.
Okay, Burak, you are allowed to share your screen now. You can
yeah,
share.
I am allowed, but I couldn't see it. It says record. Okay, I can
share screen. Just
okay. You have share screen button at the bottom.
In fact, I know it's in the more section. Anyway, okay, I don't want to share. I can speak like this because I couldn't see it, unfortunately. My title of the presentation is Cybersecurity and Legal Challenges in Cyberspace. Generally, I will try to talk about the security-related concerns in cyberspace. We all know that the cyberspace is very different from the conventional space, so it has different characteristics. So I'm going to try to summarize first the characteristics of cyberspace. Later, I will try to define some important concepts about my presentation. We all know that internet has begun as a government project in United States, but after some time it's got important all over the world, and now we use internet as a tool in almost in every aspect of our lives, from technology to health to education to government affairs to security issues, even about war related issues. We use technology and internet. And so security on the global digital platform is very important. So we should define what security is, first of all, in order to better understand the challenges that are being witnessed in today's world. So what is cybersecurity? But first of all, before defining cybersecurity, I want to define cyberspace. We all know that cyberspace is a concept. This concept was first used by Gibson in his science fiction novel in 1984, and Gibson used the term of cyberspace in order to represent a virtual environment. But also we can define cyberspace as the following. It is a global domain within the information environment consisting of the interdependent network of information technology infrastructures, including telecommunication networks, internet, computer systems, and embedded processors and controllers. So cyberspace generally has such a meaning. Cybersecurity refers to the practice of ensuring the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information in digital sphere. So basically, we can say that cybersecurity is directly related with information security or data security, maybe. Also, there is another important concept about cybersecurity. It is cybercrime. Cybercrime is known as the crimes committed in digital space. So it includes online crimes like the stealing of credit card information or hacking of the email passwords or something. These are all related with cyber crimes. We all know that in this world we live in a digitalized world. So even the trade relations and the banking activities, as I said before, the e-learning practices, the online education system, and due to the corona pandemic, right now even almost everything is has been done in cyberspace. So the digitalization of such practices have also made cybersecurity as a very significant concept. Internet, in fact, yesterday Nezir Hoca gave some insightful information about the users of internet worldwide. So in the world, as Nezir Hoca said, there are more than 4 billion people using internet all over the world, and millions of emails have been sent to each other. You know, the people on daily basis, there are millions of emails. So these email traffics also, you know, we all need to have a secure environment in order to be sure that the people that we send our emails receive the email. So in this regard, there are some institutional arrangements and there are some legal documents to secure this security in in digital platform. One of these important actors is United Nations. United Nations play a vital role in this process. It promotes cooperation among national governments, and sometimes it prepares some legal documents in order to ensure that internet has a safe platform. Another important, I want to make a quotation from a United Nations special rapporteur. This person was a rapporteur in United Nations almost 9 years ago. He said that, I am reading this quotation, the internet as a medium by which the right to freedom of expression can be exercised can only serve its purpose if states assume their commitment to develop effective policies to attain universal access to the internet. So there is another important dimension of internet. It must be both safe. Also, it also be equally and universally accessible for every citizen. So this is like a human right issue. But of course, we know that there are some challenges because in some underdeveloped states, the people cannot access internet. There is an important concept. If I had the chance to share my screen, as I said, I couldn't share my screen. So I'm gonna try to again read this. Network neutrality. This is a concept, means this is an important concept about equal access to internet. It is generally meaning, it is a meaning like this. Electronic communications and platforms should be exercised in a non-discriminatory way, regardless of their type, content, or origin. Network neutrality defends the view that internet traffic shall be treated in a non-discriminatory fashion so that internet users can freely choose online content without any kind of discrimination. Also, in terms of this network neutrality and online freedoms issue, we know that the Organization for Security and Cooperation, they regularly publish some reports about internet access and online freedom. And one of the reports of this Organization for Security and Cooperation, in the report, it is said that, I try to summarize this, in the Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as well as 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, internet access is inherent to the right to freedom of expression and such as to be a fundamental and universal human right. So a number of governments are considering adopting content and access blocking measures, but this cannot be accepted according to this regulations. Until so far, can you hear me, right? All of you can hear me.
Yes, there is no problem. We are hearing you.
Okay, I'm also looking at my clock. I have like 7 minutes, I think. The nature of cybersecurity and legal challenges around cybersecurity. In fact, this is the main body of my presentation, but so far I tried to make some bases, theoretical bases maybe. Also, I couldn't reach many documents, so I tried to make a general summary. In order to establish a secure environment in cyberspace, there are some requirements, and these requirements, as I said, there are different from the other, requirements that we do in order to challenge other kind of crimes, because internet crimes have a kind of transboundary nature. So a hacker from based in United States or hacker based in Netherlands can, hack your email password, and in this regard, which court or which national government should be responsible while fighting with these kinds of crimes. So it's a very major issue in dealing with this kind of problems. So internet has a transboundary nature, and national law is not enough in fighting cyber crimes. Regarding this issue, there was a convention signed in Budapest in 2001, and this convention said that in order to provide a secure digital platform and to combat cyber crimes, there should be an effective and working internet governance. And here another important concept is we should make reference to this concept. It is ICANN, Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers was signed in 1998. This can be as a coordinator of the main internet technical resources on the basis of a contract with the US government. ICANN recently became the focus of many internet governance debates, and we all know that it has undergone some important changes. It basically tells that it gives some policies regarding the management of internet names and numbers, generally, I can say. Another important issue, it is the General Data Protection Regulation. In Turkish, we know this Kişisel Verilerin Korunması Kanunu, and as another presenter yesterday, Mrs. Özgün Orhon has said, we know that there's a challenge in General Data Protection and Regulation. Besides illegal activities on internet, personal data access is possible under some conditions, and EU data protection rules have created some important regulations about this. So mostly some schools, some public offices can reach your data, but they all should be under state protection with this law. Another important concept, and I'm about to finish my presentation. It is the right to be forgotten, unutulma hakkı. So this is also a new concept in cyber studies and also in social sciences. The right to be forgotten sometimes has some contradictory things about with the freedom of expression, because some people say that please remove my my pictures from Google because I don't want other people to see my pictures. They belong to the very old years. But some other, the Google or other, for example, a web page of a newspaper magazine can say that everyone can have the freedom to reach information on internet, so I cannot delete your data. So, but there's a right to be forgotten. So sometimes individuals ask for search engines or companies to delete their specific information from internet. This is known as the right to be forgotten. There is a relationship between General Data Protection Regulation and the right to be forgotten. Also, finally, I can say that there are some legal documents. For example, Asia Pacific region. For this region, they signed a document in 2016. For the countries located in Asia Pacific. Also for EU, there was another document. This was the Network Information Security Directive. It was signed a few years ago. And it was prepared by Computer Security Incident Response Team. Finally, I can say that I talked about some important concepts about legal challenges and the cyberspace. The right to be forgotten, general data protection regulation, and all there and other important concepts. I tried to make some stress on these concepts. Thank you very much, dear Chair and dear Vezir Hoca, for this conference.
Dr. Begüm, Burak, thank you very much for your presentation, and also thank you really for adhering to the time limit. Just very timely you have finished, and you touched upon very important issues about the new challenges and new concepts in the legal jurisdiction and national and international legal developments about cybersecurity. Thank you very much for your presentation. Just I would like to move to our second presenter. Thank you again. Our presenter is Dr. Serdar Durer from Selçuk University. And Mr. Durer will be talking about the effect of cyber technology on selection processes. You will also have up to 20 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yalnız hocam ben sunumu Türkçe yapacağım. Özet.
Buyurun, tabii. Buyurun, Türkçe dinleyelim sizi.
Sonraki bir programımızda yine şey yapacağım. Özet geçeceğim. Yani bu siber teknolojisinin seçim süreçlerine etkisi konumuz. Bu makalenin amacı hayatımızın her alanını kuşatan teknolojinin seçim süreçlerine etkisini pratik örnekleriyle teorik olarak sunmaktır. Sanayi toplumundan bilgi toplumuna geçişin yaşandığı günümüzde gittikçe küreselleşme ile direkt bağını ortaya koymakta olan siber teknoloji, siyasi, ekonomik, kültürel ve çeşitli toplumsal birçok alanı etkisi altına almıştır. Siber teknolojinin gündelik yaşantımıza bu kadar nüfuz etmesi, siyasi faaliyetleri de kapsayan, aslında kullanabilme kabiliyetine göre de önemli bir fırsat haline gelmiştir. Günümüzde siber teknoloji hayatımızda olağanüstü bir konfor katmış olup getirmiş olduğu birçok kolaylığı herkes kabul etmektedir. İş, haberleşme, eğitim, hatta eğlence faaliyetlerimizin bile büyük bir kısmı bu alanda vücut bulmaktadır. Dolayısıyla hayatımızın en kılcal damarlarına kadar sızmış olan bu konu ciddi manada araştırılmalıdır. Bu konuyu tek başına değerlendirmek ve yol almak mümkün olmayacağı için tüm çevresel faktörleriyle en ince ayrıntısına kadar incelemeliyiz. Bunu örneklendirmek gerekirse, jenerasyonlar arasındaki bakış açısı ve jenerasyonlar arası duyulan ihtiyaç farkı bile incelenmesi gereken başlı başına konulardır. Örneğin X kuşağının toplumsal sorunlara duyarlılığı ile Z kuşağının toplumsal sorunlara duyarlılığı arasındaki farktan Y kuşağının hiyerarşiye karşı antipatisinden X kuşağının işini ve hiyerarşiyi seven yapısına kadar günümüz teknolojisinin kişilerin davranışlarına etki eden bir unsur olduğu çok açık görünen bir gerçekliktir. Dolayısıyla insan faktörünü bu kadar bariz etkileyen ve insan için bu noktaya gelmiş olan teknolojinin seçim süreçlerine etkisini tüm ayrıntılarıyla değerlendirmek gerekir. Siber teknoloji günümüzde ciddi manada hepimizin hayatında önemli bir yer işgal etmektedir. Hepimizin günlük hayatına bu kadar yerleşmiş olan teknolojinin çeşitli siyasal hareketler ya da siyasi partiler tarafından göz ardı edilmesi rasyonel olamaz. Nitekim günümüzde siyasi partiler bilgilendirme, parti programı açıklama, propaganda vesaire çalışmalarını siber teknolojiyle yürütmektedirler. Sadece siyasi partiler değil, dernek, vakıf, federasyon, odalar, borsalar, sendikalar vesaire seçim çalışmalarını başta sosyal medya olmak üzere web sayfaları, kanallar, mesaj ağları, bloglar, forumlar ile yürütmektedirler. Teknolojinin bu kadar zirve yaptığı böyle bir dönemde seçim çalışmalarını teknolojiyi iyi kullanan bir aday ile kullanamayan bir adayın seçim sürecini yönetme kabiliyetini otomatik olarak etkileyecektir. Bu durumun seçim süreçlerine etkisini ve kuşaklar arasındaki farktan kaynaklı demokrasiye ve seçim süreçlerine etkisini tüm detaylarıyla ve örnekler sunarak pekiştirmek gerekir. Belki uç bir örnek olacak fakat popüler bir sosyal medya ağı olan Facebook'un kurucusu Mark Zuckerberg bu sosyal medya ağı sayesinde dünyanın sayılı zenginlerinden biri olmayı başarmıştır. Hatta Mark Zuckerberg'in genç yaşına rağmen Amerika'da başkanlığa adaylığı bile yıllardır konuşulan ve tartışılan bir konudur. Çünkü devletler gün geçtikçe veri güdümlü teknolojik dönüşümleri etkisine her gün biraz daha girmekte olup Zuckerberg'in elindeki bu güçlü koz onun popülaritesini gittikçe artırmaktadır. Düşünebiliyor musunuz? Bugün Facebook'un yüz tanıma teknolojisi CIA ve FBI'nin yüz tanıma teknolojisinden daha kesin sonuçlar vermektedir. Zuckerberg basit bir yazılım programı yaparak böyle bir buluşa imza atıyor ve dünyanın en popüler ve en zengin isimleri arasına girmeyi başarıyor. Teknolojinin neler yapabildiğinin belki uç fakat güzel bir örneği değil mi? Teşekkür ederim.
Serdar Bey çok teşekkür ederim. Siz de zamanı çok iyi kullandınız. Bayağı da bize zaman da bırakmış oldunuz. Ama çok önemli bir tabii konu. Gerçekten belirttiğiniz gibi siber imkanlar, teknolojik imkanlar, internet imkanları hayatımızı gerçekten hem çok kolaylaştırdı hem çok önemli imkanlar sundu. Bu arada dönüştürdü de tabii ki birçok alanda hayatımızı dönüştürüyor. Tabii bu çerçevede seçimleri, siyasal yapıyı, siyasal davranışları da seçim sistemlerinin üzerinde de etkili olması çok önemli. Hem yeni imkanlar doğuruyor hem de tabii ki yeni sorunlar da çıkarıyor. Dolayısıyla bu sorunların çözümüne ilişkinde birçok yeni düzenlemenin, hukuksal düzenlemenin de yapılması söz konusu olabiliyor. Çok teşekkür ederim. Okay. So Serdar, thank you very much for your presentation. You have talked about new challenges brought by the cyber technologies to the election systems and to the new legal challenges and facilities, opportunities for the selection and election systems. Of course, we know that the cyber platforms and possibilities bring so many changes to our lives, and therefore, of course, it also creates the problems, and it therefore necessitates new legal regulations to solve these problems. Thank you very much for your presentation. Now we need to go on. Nezir Hocam, is Hristina here now? Is she ready for her presentation?
She tries to connect. Actually, she says she has some problem in internet connection. Hopefully, she will solve the problem after. I mean, when at least maybe you can do your presentation and then Hristina will join us.
Okay then. Okay then, dear all, then I can do my presentation. Then when Hristina is connected to the session, we will go on with her. I also I would like to say hello to everyone. Afternoon to everyone, and thank you very much for joining us to our conference and also to this section this afternoon. I will be talking about the privacy and cybersecurity. The privacy is an important, let's say, life area for all of us, and it's a very important element of our life. So it's also regulated and, let's say, guaranteed the right to privacy for everybody as a human rights, as a fundamental human rights, and it is guaranteed by all the international human rights conventions, agreements, and in national constitutions as well, national laws as well, guarantees and protects right to privacy for everybody. What is the privacy? Of course, the privacy does have different meanings in different societies and different contexts, in maybe different geographies. But somehow it's an area that the individual has control over it, has full control over it, and would like to, let's say, keep it private, keep it violated from other individuals, and also, of course, from the government violations. So therefore, there is a link between the security of the controlling this immediate environment for the individual, and that, you know, what we know to be known about us, that should be in control of us, that we need to control our this immediate, let's say, environment, that we doesn't want anybody else to violate it and to interfere it. And when we want it to open that, let's say, immediate, let's say, the place of the life in our life to outer space or to outer, let's say, environment. So we have some, let's say, we can say that the exact definitions of the privacy could be accepted as elusive, and generally the national and international courts are refusing to provide the clear definition of privacy. So there is no, let's say, an agreed, a general agreed, let's say, definition of the privacy. So the courts also leave this, let's say, definition to each, especially the international courts. They leave the definition to the national bodies, let's say, national institutions. As at the beginning we said, because the definition of the privacy could be different, could have different meanings in different societies and different cultures. But anyhow, we know that there is there could be a tension between freedom of expression and right to privacy. This is important in democratic societies. Freedom of expression is one of the fundamental rights of individuals, and also it's very important, the freedom of expression is very important for the proper working of the democracy as well. Without freedom of expression, the democracy cannot process, cannot work. And in that regard, of course, the journalism is very important in democratic societies. The media is very important. They are given, let's say, a job to be a watchdog for the society, for the control or for the audit of the public values or public values to be protected against the violations or against the interferences of the government. And when the media or to be as a watchdog for the society, they do make some news in the society, is it possible that they will make an interference to the right to privacy of the individual as well? In those situations, so there should be a balance between, in one hand, making a discussion about the public values, public discussion, but on the other hand, protecting the privacy of the individual. That is important balance to be struck by the media outlets or by the, let's say, journalists against right to privacy of the individuals. Dr. Begüm, Burak also talked about data protection. The individual data protection is also a new phenomenon, let's say, or is a new legal concept, comparatively new, of course. It's important, but we need to make a difference between the privacy and the data protection. So the privacy is not the data protection. We have data protection rules, and those rules are designed to address the systematic collection of data about the individuals and the protection of this information. Therefore, there are rules which apply to all personally identifying data held by designated data controllers, government agencies, government institutions, or some corporations. Somehow, the government institutions and in today's world, the banks, the corporations, they do receive the identifying information about the individuals, and if there is no rules, those data could be misused against the values of the individuals. So they should be controlled. There should be some controlling rules to protect this personal data. On the other hand, privacy is a more fluid concept applying to information about which a person may have a reasonable expectation of his or her privacy, not to be interfered. So we said that the meaning of the privacy is changing in terms of the each society, each nation. It could be changed. But in all the, let's say, definitions, or in all the situations, the personal integrity is very important. The personal integrity lies at the heart of the privacy. So the integrity should be protected, should not be interfered. So the privacy on the other hand, for example, the privacy in a communal village, of course, is different from the privacy in a modern city. They are very different. And the emergence of generalized private property has also shaped the notions of the privacy in our today's world. The privacy also, as we are, 2 days we are talking about, and tomorrow we'll be continue talking about, is shaped by the technology. And of course, between these technologies, the internet technology, the cyber technology, cyber platforms, of course, shape the privacy, and some new modern notions about privacy are growing, and there are discussions, debates about the new modes of new forms of privacy. For example, the privacy in the newspapers, in the media. So therefore, at the end of the issue, there is no exact boundaries when we take into account these new technological developments. And of course, the notion and the sphere of the privacy is changing every day. The internet is a big phenomenon, and the internet has changed all aspects of the life. Of course, therefore, the internet has changed the privacy as well. The new needs in privacy and new, let's say, challenges, new problems, and of course, new discussions in terms of the privacy. The internet, because enables the collection of new types of personal information that before was not being able to be collected. And also there is new facilities and economical demands about the collection and location of the personal information, though. So there is changes in this issue as well. The internet creates new capacities, especially for the government and also for private actors as well, like corporations, as we said, to access and to analyze and to deposit the personal information. This is a new, so therefore this is creating, of course, new challenges. And it creates new opportunities for commercial use of personal data, and most of the time against the will of the individual. So therefore, basically, it creates new challenges for the new regulations, the need for the new regulations in the protection of the privacy and protection of the individual data, personal data. We said that the internet services, internet platforms is redefining the privacy, and it's really making a big impact on the privacy environment, let's say, in a dramatic way. In the computer technology, nowadays we all are using the cloud technologies, the cloud computing. So this cloud computing, is a, let's say, it's an artificial place that we all keep our information over there. We keep our personal information, a number of individual information. Therefore, this technology, as you said, is providing, of course, immense possibilities, opportunities, and making life very easy and very comfortable for us. But on the other hand, of course, it raises the questions of security, problems of the security, data breaches, and ownership of this information problems. Again, the search engines, they systematically track and monitor our behaviors. So they are creating new challenges, new problems. But the social networks depend on a company-led exchange and analysis of data provided by the user. So it's also creating new opportunities, but on the other hand, of course, new problems. The government now is easily accessing our information, personal information, especially now most of the governmental, let's say, services are also given on the internet platforms, on cyber platforms. E-government, the government now is moving, to the digital platforms, as we all experience, and it's in our life. So the provision of services, most of the, the services are now provided by the government over the cyber platforms, internet platforms. So some governments, therefore, have designated e-identities even that allow services, banking, voting, health, monitoring, etc. So the life is really dramatically changing with these technologies. So with the sheer volumes of data available to the government, so it is very difficult to conceive that the governments won't seek to misuse this information. So there is a need for the legal regulation which will prevent governments for the misuse. Although we know that maybe it will not be possible, but it needs to be limited. The use of the personal information by the governments need to be limited, need to be subject to the rules, at least. So internet is built and operated, we know that, by the private sector, and this is another problem. It's not a public utility. And the provision of the internet services based on a business model based on advertising, we know that. So we trade our seed of our privacy in exchange for free services from the, let's say, Facebook, from Twitter, from social media platform. They are free to us, but actually they are trading our personal information because there is a saying in English: there is no free lunch, there is no free services. So it seems that it's free, but they are using the personal information, individual information, for their, let's say, commercial benefits. So such services, service models either directly depend upon exposing the private information. And we had some crises, as you know, from Facebook and from other platforms, that there has been leakage of the personal information of the users, the huge leaks. Or they intrude on our privacy to create efficiencies. The tools that optimize the searches based on tracking of the user preferences. They are providing the internet platforms, cyber platforms, social media platforms. They are providing, important and free services to all of us, to each of us. But on the other hand, they are also being a very risks, problems for our privacy, for our personal information. And also the technology and the internet has created a cross-border data transfer as well. So these cross-border transfers of personal data which is now common in utility provision, financial services, education, e-commerce, and even in health search. So this growing digital trade and new technologies, such as 3D printing, could see the global flows of capital, data, goods, and services more than any previous times. When we look at the privacy offline and privacy online, the privacy online should be protected, should be guaranteed as privacy offline. So there is a new issue now, new problem. But what does it mean in practice? So we need to understand what is new about the environment, the privacy environment, and how to tackle these new problems, new challenges in this new environment about the privacy. So the next generation of innovation, Internet of Things, the wearable technologies, artificial intelligence, and the robotics, 3D printings, these are all very critical, very important, let's say, technologies which will make our lives very comfortable. But on the other hand, they are also very dangerous, let's say, critical to society as well, to the privacy, to the personal information, to all of us. So it's a big also risk. It's a big threat to our private life, to our privacy as well. So we can say that there are two related issues also to consider: the implications of developments in private sector and where the technologies and markets are leading. We need to look at this issue, and the use of personal data by the governments, how we can put the proper rules over the governments when they use our personal data. Not just here the security surveillance issue, but wider recasting of citizen government relations, which digitally now it's related to any aspect of our individual and public or the state relations, in terms of the education, in terms of the tax, in terms of the health, and etc. So there is a need to make a balance to tackle, on the other hand, the crimes in interfering the privacy. We need to think about it. So the governments in that regard should commit to ensuring user security and privacy as a policy goal, and the governments also should commit to freedom of expression. They need to respect the freedom of expression, and should strike a balance, should be aware of the need of a balance between the freedom of expression on the one hand, but on the other hand, the right to privacy. There should be a balance between these two rights. The government should need to understand the cybersecurity issues, cybersecurity needs, and should embrace all users of interest in a secure, let's say, environment. Maybe very importantly, the government should be transparent about the rationale and scope of surveillance if they are doing, or other measures which is violating the privacy of the individuals, of the people. And also they should ensure that the rules governing the surveillance and privacy violations are grounded in law, consistent with international principles, and subject to supervision. This is very important. There should be a supervision of the independent courts or independent tribunals over the let's say practices of the government in terms of when they process the data, personal data, or when they are interfered in the privacy. Should be effective regulations, effective laws in terms of the protection of the privacy and the data protection, and this regulation should have let's say bodies, tribunals which have technical skills on the let's say controlling the governmental issues. I know that the time is approaching. Just in terms of the companies, not only the governments are interfering in the privacies, but nowadays with their commercial, let's say, processes, most of the companies, corporations also are creating risks to our privacies. So the companies, on the other hand, should practice greater transparency about their data management practices. They should provide accessible and reasonable terms of the service. They should explore the shift of business model to one where there is greater user control of data, with the ability for users to own data and grant permission for use. And they should encourage higher standards for encryption of the data. If I conclude, 10 years ago, the International Law Commission concluded that no homogeneous hierarchical meta system is realistically available within the international legal order to resolve detailed differences among the separate spheres, that this would have to be left to the realm of the practice. So the practice is important. So this very basically means that legal prospect of a global privacy policy is about how the governments will practice these issues. So their practice was very important in terms of the protection of the privacy and the individual data of the individuals. So I would like to finish here. Thank you very much for listening. Okay, so I am also the chair of the session. So I would like to now welcome Dr. Hristina Crenn. She also joined us now. She will be talking about, let me just look at the, okay, yeah. Her title would be Data Breaches in the Era of COVID-19, Silent Identity Collection as an International Political Instrument, the Weak Experience of Balkan Region. It's a very interesting title. Hristina, you will have 20 minutes to make your presentation.
Hello everyone, merhaba herkese. I would like to present myself. My name is Hristina Crenn. I am from Macedonia. I'm actually an undergraduate student. I'm not yet a doctor. But I really like research. So today I'll be specifically speaking about the data protection breaches in the Balkan region. How the normativity or the normative provisions of the legal world are not implemented widely in the state apparatus of each Balkan country. So basically, my title is a little bit long, is true, but I would like to depict with this title that some events that occurred during this period of COVID-19 that is already more or less that lasts 8 or 9 months. So basically, the titles of my research topic is like data breaches in the year of COVID-19, silent identity collection, and as an additional subtitle, the weak experience of the Balkan region. Well, I would like to specifically mention that the Balkan countries are actually Macedonia, Serbia, Croatia, Slovenia, Montenegro, Kosovo, Albania, Bulgaria, Romania, and Hungary. Greece as well. It's part of the Balkan Peninsula. Why I have mentioned in my title data breaches in the era of COVID-19, it is because actually our institutional system suddenly could not implement a specific software protection for the personal information of the COVID-19 infected people who, and actually there were COVID-19 leaks regarding the patient records. So there were not only the human rights were violated, but also there was a violation of the right to privacy and also violation to the right of medical secret for the patient, it's himself or herself. So also there was no respect for the notion of ethics and morality. What happened, the background of this story is that in the Balkan region, suddenly, when the lists were started to be, the list of the people was started to be published on social media. And we didn't know at first who published them. Like basically the names, the surnames, the date of birth, the email addresses, and even the home addresses of the people were published on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and the countries were wondering who was doing this. So basically, they were over time some ineffective. That showed actually the ineffectivity of the data protection law. So suddenly the websites of especially in Macedonia, what I speak about the case of Macedonia, suddenly the websites of the Ministry of Economy and Finance and even of Health and Education were hacked, the websites. So that also signifies about the ineffectivity of data protection law of the state apparatus. Basically, in the Balkan region, what I would like really to mention this in the paper, it is as an argument, is that in the Balkan region, there is the presence of nationalism. And we are still solving the questions, the historical questions of the past. So there are ethnical problems and there that are connected with that phenomenon of nationalism, who started to actually to spread much more after the breakup of Yugoslavia, actually in 1991. So we are having a significant legal system. We are having great legal systems, but all of them are theoretical. And the jurists, the lawyers or judges are facing difficulties to implement such legal provisions due to the political pressure. So currently in Macedonia, we are facing a story. Actually, the politicians are not speaking about the problem of COVID-19, but they are speaking about solving the political problems between Greece and Macedonia, between Bulgaria and Macedonia, etc., etc. And that caused over time the phenomenon of brain drain as well to emerge. So brain drain, that means like young people like me and other ones are just leaving the country. So for instance, I was in Paris before, now I'm in Istanbul. And I have noticed that currently in my hometown in Prilep, in Macedonia, in the last 6 months, 2,000 people abandoned or left the city. So that means that we are facing also a phenomenon of old people. Actually, of old people, what I would like to say with that is that the old people are dominant in the country. So the presence of older people is prevalent in the country, and there starts the problem when old people, for instance, are trying to use the email addresses. They are not, they do not know how to cope with internet problems. So too often they will open spam emails or some fraudulent emails, and in these emails often some hackers are asking these people to provide sensitive information such as the number of a credit card or the passwords of your social media accounts, etc., etc. And over time this became a problematic situation where we are trying to where the organizations, the NGOs, are trying to portray to the government, but the governments are just there talking and portraying the art of empty rhetorics regarding the political problems of Macedonia and the other countries of the Balkan region, such as in the case of Bosnia as well, but they are not focusing on the problem of COVID-19. So suddenly we're having people who were actually, there was the process of evacuating people from abroad, and there were the provisions, the legal provisions regarding keeping social distance, wearing masks were presented and sent as a PDF files to all of these people who were actually on the list for evacuation. But suddenly in the planes, camera clips that were shared on social media, portraying that the people were not respecting the rules regarding actually the COVID-19 protection measures. And I would like to mention that now for each specific countries, for each country specifically, so some other websites started to emerge, such as, for instance, in Serbia started to emerge the website coronavirus.srpskoj.com that was actually publishing the list also of people who were infected with COVID-19. And suddenly, all of these lists, when they started to emerge, also in the city of Kumanovo and Ohrid in Macedonia, suddenly all of these people were subject to racist attacks and numerous attacks on their dignity, insults, etc., etc. Over time, we have the organizations noticed that in Croatia, basically, there was the website samoizolacija.hr. Samoizolacija in the Balkan Slavic languages means basically self-isolation. So this website actually started to publish the list of people who were actually asked to stay at home because they were already infected with COVID-19. So over time, the Constitutional Court of Croatia closed down basically this website. So we see that this weak experience of the Balkan region is not portrayed only by the ineffectivity of the ineffectivity of the system itself, but is also portrayed by the unwillingness of the political figures to change the situation. So basically, we're having a phenomenon of a collapsed health system. The public hospitals are incapable to provide healthcare for people. So basically, it is very difficult to build a new hospital. For building a new hospital in Macedonia takes from 4 to 5 years. But in some countries, such as Italy, during the era of COVID-19, they built a new hospital for 4 months. And the problem of racism emerges in Macedonia and nearby countries is when people start ethnically to attack each other. You're from that ethnicity, I'm from this ethnicity. So basically, they're portraying the phenomenon of nationalism. They're saying that they're patriotic, but that's not patriotism what it's about, actually. Patriotism is more related to the love you're having for your own homeland, rather than saying that, for instance, I can be Turkish and live in Turkey and be born in another country, but still feeling that I'm Turkish, for instance. So that is what is patriotism, but nationalism is more attacking in the Balkan region, like they're attacking the other ethnical minorities. For instance, as a Balkan person, I can say that I am so happy that we have such a diverse group of people, Jewish, Muslims, Christians, that are speaking their local languages. And that is actually the treasure of the Balkan region, where we can speak in Turkish, in Macedonian, and other Balkan languages. So we have a plethora of diverse groups that are there, that they're supposed to promote the values of their culture. But since I was born from 1996 and there when I grew up until now, until the age of 24, I constantly, for instance, if I say I'm a Macedonian, I constantly receive some attacks by people, not in social media, fortunately, but they were saying, "Oh, you're from Macedonia. You are Greek. You're a Bulgarian. You're Albanian, etc., etc." And I said, "I'm Macedonian. Was born in a Macedonian family." But that doesn't mean that in Macedonia other groups are not existing, such as Turkish people. There is almost 2% of Turkish people living in the country. There is a Jewish community as well. They're Albanian. So it's a very diverse community, which I'm very proud of. But the people that are living in Macedonia, they're not proud of that. And that I say it is due to the lack of the ineffectivity of the government to portray the cultural heritage of their own country. So in order to conclude, I would like to mention that regarding the COVID-19 in the era, we are mentioning the notions of global health, public health, but we do not mention the approach and the notion of One Health. One Health combines the approach of or the connection between animal health, human health, and environmental health. We as human beings tend to we are prone to promote the human rights, and to promote the provisions of the human rights conventions that are created by us or by the lawmakers, basically. But they are not speaking about the rights of the environment or the basically the rights of the animals. So One Health is, I am collaborating with an NGO from the US as a social media intern, where we are actually working on the concept of One Health. So the organization is One Health Lessons and is founded by Dr. Deborah Thompson, who is a veterinarian. And we're trying to not only speak about public health, global health, but also about One Health. And that is there when in the Balkan region, perhaps, and in this part of Turkey, perhaps, where we can promote the notion of One Health that will comprehend the, not only the human rights conventions, but also the Charter of the Environment for preserving the environment, or the charters for the animals' rights, about treatment, equal treatment for different kind of animals, etc., etc. So this is the way I would like to conclude that COVID-19 as a disease or as a pandemic, we know that there are plenty of conspiracy theories that COVID-19 was used as a method to reduce the world's population, which is one of the conspiracy theories, but it's a fact that exists. And plenty of people do not know that COVID-19 is a zoonotic disease. So we need to study the nature of the disease in order to determine what will be the consequences. So as a zoonotic disease, that means that the disease itself was transmitted from an animal to human. It exists, it's a fact. Even though there are some other conspiracy theories saying that coronavirus was created in a laboratory, but whatever it was created, we know that it's a zoonotic disease, and that is currently we should tackle the problem of that is impeded actually by to tackle the problem that the politicians are incapable of solving it. But as human beings, we should promote the notion of One Health in order to say, like, COVID-19 is not only affecting human beings, but also animals. And that's also it is very difficult for the environment as well. So if we live in harmony with nature, as we say, the popular saying, we can perhaps promote the notion of One Health. And this is what I would like to argue also in the paper, the notion of One Health by promoting the weak experience of the Balkan region, by stating that perhaps, as also Marie Curie said during her Nobel speech, she said basically, in this life, nothing is to be feared, but it is necessary to understand that. So if we understand the origin of COVID-19, that is a zoonotic disease, perhaps we can explain more the ineffectivity of the government policies and the politicians who are literally not aware about the origin of COVID-19, etc. So basically, this is my conclusion.
Dear Hristina, thank you very much for your presentation. So now we have finished all 3 presentations. The speeches have been completed now, and it's time for the discussion. Now the floor will be yours, our participants. When you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand, or maybe you can just open your microphone and ask your question. Please just, you can introduce yourself and tell us who you are directing your question. Okay, the floor is yours now. No question? I think Nezir Hoca will ask a question maybe.
Zahima is asking question on chat.
On chat. Okay, let me have a look. Okay, yes, it's a long question. First of all, congratulations to all the speakers for great talk. Any speaker can respond to my question. It's about data protection laws. How do you see transborder data flow between nation states? What mechanism should be used to govern cross-border data flow in the environment when nations do not trust each other? United Nations conferences are not successful, neither UN organization, I don't know, or OEG, regarding governing cyberspace. Your comments, please. Dr. Burak, would you like to maybe say anything about this?
Yes, maybe. Actually, I think the answer to this question is not very rigid. Actually, I don't have any idea about the recent developments, but Zahima, I think, asks about the data protection laws in general. So I think we can say that these kinds of laws from time to time are regulated, they are put into practice, but I think these reflect the interest of the big powers. For example, in the EU, some particular countries prepare such laws, and then they make an election process in between themselves, and then they try to implement this. But outside the borders of the EU, again, there emerge some problems. For example, a hacker from Netherlands, can hack a Middle Eastern country to the inhabitants living in Lebanon, maybe. So I'm not sure which countries, national law will be used in this process, the Netherlands or the Lebanon, or does EU hold specific rules about this? So I think this data regulation laws or data protection arrangements are always updated, and I think they are not very, very successful in fighting these problems. So cross-border data flows or other, problems. I think we cannot easily solve these problems. Even we use the United Nations or EU or Council of Europe, even such strong international organizations. I think they are not strong enough because they cannot implement these rules to the borders outside their member states. And in terms of United Nations GGE conferences, can Zahima unmute yourself and show yourself to us? Maybe you can explain, because actually I don't know what UN GGE conferences stand for. Zahima.
Yes, let me just give me a minute. Yes.
Turn your video, Zahima. Please. Right now you're unmuted and we cannot see you, but of course I don't know what is UN GGE conference. So I think they are the abbreviation, of course, for something, but maybe you have the definition.
Yes. Sorry, I'm using it from my mobile, so if video is not getting on. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, we can hear.
Yes. Actually, United Nations GGE are a group of government experts, and the OEWG, it is open-ended group discussion. So these two groups, United Nations actually made back in 2013 or 2012. And it was about governing cyberspace between all nation states. And now what happened was all nations, they became the member of UNGGE, group of governmental experts, and they talked about how to govern cyberspace, because cyberspace is very, critical and very multi-fold environment or arena, you can say, where for me, it can be freedom of speech, but for other, it can be my freedom of speech can be, or my freedom of action can be critical threat to their critical infrastructure. So all nations, they did not agree on single or unanimous notion or any rules and any regulations on which they can, work on. they started becoming, there was two groups in UNGGE. One was followed by, United States of America, and the other one was Chinese group. US, they wanted to make it open for all, open space for all. And Chinese, they wanted it to be, strict, and there should be controls on it, and, like other Chinese policies. So the United Nations held 2 to 3 conferences. One was in 2015. The latest one was in 2017. But all these conferences, they did not succeed because of the same reason. Because, how can one nation trust on another? Yesterday, Dr. Nazir, he was saying that in cyberspace, we don't know our enemies. I mean, we don't know that our neighbor is our enemy or he's our friend. So in cyberspace, it happens. The same goes for different nations. So my question was that since United Nations, both conferences, GGE and open-ended group, it is actually initiated by Russians and Chinese, and Indians are also there. So both are not successful. So how can we say that we can govern cyberspace in terms of now there are many important terms like data protection laws and privacy, like Mr. Murat has talked about. And then there is another very important issue, that is data flow. One person is sitting in one country and its data is being used or misused by technology companies in another country. So, yes. I mean, these are very important questions which needs to be answered. And yes, you are right. Your all presentations were very good, and I thoroughly enjoyed each one of that. And we all need to think about it, that how can these governments, I mean, are there any legal entities, or are there legal rules, regulations, conventions, which can be followed? I mean, there should be anything, I mean, which should be followed to cater all these different issues. Thank you very much. I think I am clear to everyone.
Yes, thank you, Zahima. Thank you. Actually, I saw a news yesterday. For example, the coronavirus vaccines, they were still stolen.
Yes.
So this means that even the EU or the very, very big drug companies, they cannot, fight this problem. So
very true.
It's very hard, because again they will continue to use this vaccine formulas. Even it is, it has stolen by some hackers. There were some news, but again they are trying to use it. So
that's very true. Yes.
Thanks for your question.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for Zahima's question and Dr. Begüm for your answer. Maybe we can say, really, it's because of the nature of the cyber space, let's say, it's really difficult to take the proper measures, in terms of protection of the data. It will be very difficult, but it will depend on the international cooperation at the moment. As long as the international cooperation intensifies, all the nations, under the United Nations or other international governmental organizations, if they are ready to work together, to cooperate together, maybe some solutions and some, let's say, measures, protective measures could be found. Of course, one of the biggest problems in international law is the issue of the jurisdiction. Whether the national, of course, the crimes are subject to the national jurisdiction. Maybe in the future, if the agreements is reached between the most of the nations, maybe these, let's say, data protection violations could be accepted to be subject to the universal jurisdiction in terms of the national jurisdictions. Maybe that could be a solution in the future, but at the moment we are far from, let's say, this agreement or this kind of notion. Let's see then. Thank you very much, Zahima. Kamil is raising the hair.
Thank you for presentation, Prof. I just want to make one comment firstly. Dr. Begüm told yesterday some hackers attacked this company from Germany for vacancy. Actually, they didn't attack the formulate. They just attacked to see how the presentation, because that company was supposed to make presentation for statesman, for government, and for institution. They just stole the information about presentation. And the other issue with Zahima told, the problem in the cyberspace is there is no cyber trust. Like each government perceives the threats and meaning of conflicts differently. For this, like China using different terms for the approach, the USA's approach is different from them. So they cannot make a consensus about like the cyber governance in the international. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Kamil, for your contributions. Any other questions? Evet, Nezir. Nezir. Okay, Nezir.
I have two comments, maybe one question for Hristina. First of all, okay, we have problem of cyber law in international relations, particularly. I mean, there is no one, even one treaty, I mean, among the United Nations member countries. There are some regional conventions, such as the European Convention on cyber crimes by the Council of Europe. There is one convention by the African Union and also Arab League, and then we have nothing else. So there is no cooperation at the international level. The second one, even if you have cooperation among the states, it is not enough to provide security or provide some sort of safety for data transference in international relations, because cyberspace is not a state-centric domain. It is much more run by the private companies and dominated by the private companies. And therefore, if you don't, I mean, take all the stakeholders in the process of cyber governance, including the governments, the companies, international organizations, and also NGOs that are dealing with the internet. We cannot manage this space. So first of all, we have to solve this problem. Of course, Russia and China, they try to develop some sort of treaties, but the proposals they have submitted so far, they are not, to be honest, not proposals that are approaching a free and safe cyberspace. Instead, they would like to control, to monitor cyberspace at the global level. So therefore, they do not get the support of other international actors. Regarding, okay, the second issue, when, okay, Hristina talking about the animal rights, okay, in general, the protection of ecosystem without making any difference between the elements of the ecosystem.
Yeah, that was more related to COVID-19 as a notion regarding the origin of COVID-19. I was more referring to that.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, still, but you know, like, right to have a clean environment is also a human rights.
Absolutely.
So we cannot exclude environment or animals completely from the human rights discourse, human rights regulations. Of course, they are not, I mean, human beings are at the center of human rights. Yeah. And like Heidegger, I mean, he does not make any differentiation between even trees and human beings. I mean, he does not like to use he or she. He uses it for for human beings, because when you use he or she, that means you are giving a special importance to human beings. So there is also, this view is quite strong among environmentalists, and this is understandable. But you know, like when you enlarge the concepts that such the comprehensive that covers everything, then you lose the focus, okay, the focus point. So if you are talking about the rights, let's say, if you are talking about, of course, I mean, they are all interrelated, integrated, but I mean, human rights, okay, it's a specific topic, and then you can focus on it, you can discuss it, develop it, whatever, anyway. But when you say, okay, it's just should be about the rights of everything, I didn't get the concept you are using, like one right?
No, it is actually a new concept. It's about the concept of One Health. It started to, it's a new phenomenon.
One health?
One Health. One
Okay.
Health. You are speaking about global health, about public health. But we're not speaking about One Health as a notion. So that's a new theory, actually, that I wanted to mention about.
Okay. So that's quite good. I mean, a useful concept. But in terms of functionality, I mean, you know, like when you enlarge the concepts, then it's difficult to get the support or to even get some sort of regulations. So I don't know what, I mean, I have any idea about the details of this concept. What is the, let's say, approach and how to solve, I mean, all these problems together, actually. I mean, I would like to read something about it, but I would prefer to have, I mean, okay, these subjects separated. So it is better to focus just on one subject, and then otherwise we will lose the point. That's
actually what I was mentioning, just briefly, if I can say, what I was mentioning, like regarding the what is my research oriented on, I am more focused on, you know, when I'm trying to cope with social sciences and law at the same time with my different undergraduate degrees, is that I try to combine approaches or theories and make our like, how to say, not to criticize the authors, but trying to say, like, you know, in a comparative approach, this author is right for this and this author is wrong for this, in my opinion. Definitely it is a very large at the same time, but this is, you know, just the scope for this presentation. I wanted just to promote also the concept of One Health, which is not, is very unknown for the legal specialist as well, because it's a concept that's coming from veterinary medicine as well, but it's very much related to legal medical health as well, regarding COVID-19 especially, as a zoonotic disease.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Nezir Akeçilmen and Hristina, for your contributions. Now, I would like to turn to our participants. Any other question or another contribution, comment? Yeah, it seems that it's okay. There is no other question or comment. So we can complete and we can finish our session now. Nezir, the next one is will be at 18, isn't it?
Yeah, next session, but it will be in Polish, I guess. So if you are Polish,
okay.
you can join the session.
Okay, then. If it is in Polish, then maybe we will not be participating. Or maybe we can learn a little bit Polish up to 18 o'clock. Okay, so thank you very much for everybody, for our presenters and for listeners, participants. It was quite really a beneficial session. We have discussed the new theories, new concepts, challenges, and try to find some solutions, or maybe solution ideas at least. I hope our conference will make a contribution, will make a way for discussion and maybe for some solutions to the problems that are brought by the cybersecurity issues. And it's the fourth one. I hope this will continue and will go on and will be an established international conference in the area, in this important area that somehow affects all of us and every aspect of our lives. So once more, I would like to really thank you to Professor Nezir Akyeşilmen to be pioneer in Turkey on this issue, to initiate this conference, and to always really motivate all of us, each of us, to work on these issues and to make this cybersecurity issues as a focal point in Turkey, let's say. So thank you to him, and thank you all for making and for realizing this conference as a successful conference and as a successful session. So thank you very much, and I leave to Nezir maybe for some technical announcements.
So today we have at 18 we have another session in Polish, most probably. Tomorrow we have 2 sessions, but most probably we will divide the last session because we have, I guess, like 10 speakers. So maybe we need to divide that session into 2. So tomorrow we will have 3 sessions, I guess, all in, no, okay, 1 in Turkish, 2 in English. Okay, thank you very much for participation and for your contribution. And you will receive your certificates in several minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thanks.